Hello and welcome, Facyl. Hello and welcome, Salamanca. I'm Laura Welzenbach. I'm the head of Ars Electronica Export, and I'm super excited to talk a little bit with you today about curating for and with a city. And particularly, we check out this year's festival, the Ars Electronica Festival 2021, and look into some programs that we had there that also target your question around the impact of a festival in a city. But before we go to our festival, I would like to make a little excursion to the studies of museology, where one thought that inspires me a lot in my doing and my work is the museum is part of a political apparatus that builds identity through creation of belonging. Thinkers are like Vicky McCall, Clive Gray and Nora Sternfeld, as well as Irit Rogoff, who write and think a lot around these theories that I just want to quickly pick up a bit. These thinkers pick up the question about separation of power, checks and balances in a democracy, and what role a museum can play. When we think about a democracy, it's not only about legislature, executive, and judiciary. It's also about a critical press who checks the checks and balances. So now it's about the idea what the museum can play in this narrative, what options there are to think about it becoming a place for dialogue and conversation. They have the idea that the museum and art and culture initiatives and work in that field is a central pillar of democracy. Press, of course, press, television, radio do a lot of this checks and balance work that needs to happen in the separation of power. But also social media, theater, music are pillars here that allow a place for dialogue. They think about the museum being one of these entities and safe spaces that could navigate and be a liaison between politics and the general public. I like the idea a lot to have the museum as one of the rooms and spaces where people can meet and share their thoughts and ideas, not only about the futures, but also about their concerns. It's about questioning power and also redistributing power. They demand that the museum must become an accessible place for everyone, not only an elite, not only a public that is interested in arts. This is a very tiny niche. Let's think about strategies that open to the general public. I love these ideas and thoughts and theories, and I can highly recommend to look deeper into it. And now I would like to show you a little bit how we work with these strategies, or how we try to implement these strategies about becoming a place for dialogue and conversation, and becoming a place where the future, or the visions of the future, can be created and co-designed together. This brings me to this year's festival topic, a digital New Deal. This is definitely picking up the idea about the Green New Deal that started in the US, and it's now also, or was picked up by the European Commission with the European Green New Deal. What Ars Electronica wants to put in the center with this festival is to think of the digital as a fundamental role in finding the solutions for the Green New Deal. It is important to include this element as, on the one hand, a troublemaker and finding solutions for those troubles, but also as a problem solver. And this was the narrative that guided us this year at the festival. On the one hand, it's about get a deal out of it, think about some sort of paper that allows us to then work together, some sort of agreement for us as a society, but also for a global connected world. But when we also talk about a deal, we also wanted to dig in the question, how do we deal with it on an individual level? I like this little wordplay that we created with this title. And with this, I would like to show you this year's festival trailer that gives you a little impression about what we will dive into more in a bit. One example that I would like to dig into really deep right now is our format Create Your World. It's colorful and diverse, as you can see in this little image, and that was definitely chosen on purpose. With Create Your World, it's not only a format within the festival from youth for youth, it becomes from youth for the general public. It is important to see Create Your World not only as the youth format that we have, but actually really inviting everyone, it doesn't matter what age, to come and explore the playful manner of diving into different topics. Create Your World has many different aspects that they fulfill, but some I want to introduce you today. They are indeed a fundamental part of all our activities at the festival and a central pillar for local, regional and national connection. One way that we do this is our pre-Ars Electronica U19 category. As you can see, we have a prize like the pre-Ars Electronica also for our young audiences. And they are on the same level. They also get a golden Nika for the two categories that we can see here. On the one hand, the young creatives, from the very small and young ones to 14-year-olds. And then we have the second category, young professionals, from 14-year-old to 19-year-olds. What I love about this project is also, as you can see, that there is like a value that we put towards the winners of these prizes. They can win 2,000 euros or even 5,000 euros, which is quite a substantial amount for a young group of people who collaborate and work together, or maybe also submit their very own work. I would also like to introduce you to the jury. It is one more option that allows us to connect to the local and regional. We do have Sirikit Amman. She is like our connection to policymakers, if you may will. She is the head of the new department Education and Society at the ÖRAD GmbH, the Austrian Agency for Education and Internationalization. She thereby focuses in her work on the digital education. So she brings in a very particular point of view and is also one of our long-term members. She is also taking care of a consecutive narrative and a comprehension of what we select in the jury process. The second jury member is Tori Reichel. He is a journalist and moderator and in general super smart person to talk with a direct language to youth. He is out there and brings in topics like colonialism and cultural heritage in his work. And I think he brought in a very important point of view that also allowed going into a different direction. The third jury member is Connie Lee. She is a moderator at FM4. It's a radio station, a public radio station here in Austria actually, where she has her own sessions where she talks also about different topics and is actually focusing on love. So she is working at the public radio for a format that is targeted towards youth, and she is like constantly working on these topics. So having her in the Create Your World jury is also super important, as it is a dialogue, because she can work with the input that she gets from the applications and also give feedback about that in a bigger understanding. Another person that allows us to connect to the audiences here, and in particular to youth, is Mira Lukovac. Besides that, I'm a huge fan myself. She is a musician. Many kids submitted works in the year before using Mira's music to visualize and make little music videos. So it was reason enough to invite her as a jury member, as she is obviously a role model for so many people. And that's the inspiration and the connection also now that Mira allowed us to bring in for the youth. Even a little tiny side story is that one of the applicants is now working with Mira Lukovac, maybe on a new music video. So this is also like a really cool thing that the Prix and the jury meeting allowed there to happen. Last, but definitely not least, we have Josef Dorninger, also as one of the jury members. He is working at OMA-I and is an artist and educator. So he has the praxis with working with youth and educating and trying to transfer knowledge, but he is also like very keen on having this on a two-sided way and not on a one-sided way. He developed his own tool with his colleagues at the collective OMA-I, and he created a tag tool. It is a tagging tool that allows you to draw on an iPad and make projections on different surfaces. It allows you also a playful interaction with educative topics and themes. So they use the tool that they created themselves as a art tool, but also as a tool for education. So I think this jury also shows really nicely how we can directly go to the people with selecting or finding jury members who also pick up these topics and are role models and makers and doers in their particular field. Because it is so nice, I also want to share their jury statement with you real quick. I'm gonna read it. It's just a part of the jury, but I think it's really impressive. By this year's submission deadline, the year-long state of emergency had become the new normal. But especially for young people, a year feels like an entire phase of one's life. Despite everything, however, it would be a complete misnomer to describe these young people as the lost generation. During this extraordinary and trying period, they have gained new perspectives and were able to observe societal process that will occupy historians for decades to come. It is a generation shaped but not stigmatized by these events. These young people will decide for themselves what they do with the lessons from this time. I have goosebumps as I read this also before. I think it's just so nice what kind of narratives the jury members can also gain out of the jury process and looking into these different works and topics that youth is actually dealing with and thinking about. It is the opener for this two-sided conversation that we mentioned before, because youth applies their ideas or submits their ideas to the Prix Ars Electronica, and we listen and hear and think about these inputs in creating the programs for the festival. Once the jury process is over, the selected artworks then get invited to the festival. One event that we have there is the award ceremony U19 Create Your World. So youth becomes their own ceremony for receiving the Golden Ika, for sharing the story. They become their stage in the center of the festival. It is a very, very special event, and I can highly recommend you, if you ever make it to the festival, please check out not only the U19 award ceremony, but also their very own exhibition. The projects submitted get into their own exhibition, as I just mentioned. It is a variety of different approaches and methods that youth come to the Ars Electronica. And I just wanted to introduce you 3 projects that I also had the great pleasure to meet the persons behind these projects in person at the festival. It is amazing to see them at the festival in the exhibition, talking about their work, being able to convey their perspective of why this is important to an audience and explain also the mechanics and technology maybe behind it. We have artworks, but also really technical solutions that can trigger a lot of inspiration. The first project that I want to dig a little deeper into that you can see here is Benjamin's Recycling Center. Benjamin Hölzel is a Lego computer mechanic, I would say. Several robots made out of Lego process a recycling path One machine compresses, another one separates the kind of garbage between aluminum and paper, and then compresses the different materials so it doesn't take away so much space. Benjamin just created his own machines that solve the problem that he sees when it comes to recycling. Another project is Urban Green, bamboo bicycle. The artists and creatives behind these projects are Angelika Djucic, Lukas Gabesam, Japlin Kurana, Alina Schweighofer, and they are from the Euregio HTBLVA in Verlach. This is the school where they worked. So we can also see individuals can submit to the Prix, but also schools and maybe diploma projects. As it was in this case, this group of people worked on an idea that for their perspective wasn't quite there. It is about the bamboo bike that you can also see on the slide. It exists already, and they also collaborated with the manufacturer who makes the bamboo bikes. What they didn't like about the manufacturing there is that these connecting parts of the bicycles are not made yet out of biodegradable materials. So they thought, hey, maybe we can find a solution for that. And they started to design their very own materials, like their very own shapes, through 3D printing and through biodegradable materials in 3D printing. They created these new, that you can see like the red connecting elements in the bike. Also here, a concrete idea for a problem that they thought, that can be solved. Last but not least, I wanted to talk about Sarah Hölzel's work, Little Dancing Star. I personally love her artwork a lot. As you can see, it's this tiny robot, and it also got its very special frame on this slide. Sarah loves to dance. She goes dancing regularly. And that's definitely something that she missed a lot during the lockdown. She wasn't able to meet friends, and particularly not sharing this experience of dancing in a space together with other people. So what she did is creating her own robot who shares the dancing experience with her. You can see the little one right next to her, and she's like proudly dancing with the robot at the festival. I find it super interesting because she also picks up the idea about why should robots only be used for work? Why can they not only also be some sort of friend for times like a lockdown? These were only 3 participants from this year's competition, from the Prix Ars Electronica U19, but also from the exhibition. And there are so many more in many different age categories. And the following video will give you a little glimpse at the beginning what you were able to see at this year's festival. Enjoy. Yes, this was festival day 2 this year, just about some time ago. You were also able to see the conferences and also the big concert night. So the program is of course like much wider and broader. But another one for local connection and for regional connection I wanted to talk with you about is our Ars Electronica campus. every year, for a very long time now, we are collaborating with the Art University here in Linz. It's actually ideal because they are right at the other side of the Danube, so we just need to cross the bridge to be right there on their campus. Every year they participate with an exhibition, and the whole ground floor will be taken over by the students. This year, they decided to call their exhibition Loops of Wisdom. How knowledge is generated and what this means for wisdom is the question that they addressed with the exhibition. The aim was to collect actions, thoughts, and especially ideas based on our own experience. It is also a call to action, but a place for inspiration to then become active. I was really impressed to see that 10 departments were part of this year's exhibition. Interface cultures, time-based media and interactive media arts, visual communication, art education, industrial design, architecture and urban studies, design and technology, fashion and technology, media design, space and design strategies. 10 departments working together on one exhibition where students could really show their own works and show the thoughts what they are working on at the moment. I think it's also amazing to see with the Ars Electronica campus the continuing involvement that we try to keep going with people in different age groups. So the U19 Create Your World was the start, and the campus is a continuation, just one of the continuations that we celebrate at the festival. One important aspect with the Ars Electronica campus program is also to always collaborate with at least one university. So it's also a collaboration for the Art University here in Linz to pick up the conversation with another university. It's changing every year, and this year we had the great pleasure to work with Zurich University of the Arts and their Interaction Design Department. It is a great way to continuing collaboration and continuing extending collaborations with various players in the field who also think about the same topics. As you can see here in the image, the students from Zurich got their own gallery space right at the Hauptplatz, right behind the university, right across the bridge, where they were able to install their own show, to also show their exhibition design that I, by the way, found really, really beautiful and well done. And what I also really like, as you can see in the other image, what kind of impact it can have, or it maybe lets you think about what kind of impact it can have to bring all these different students here to Linz to work together for a particular time. I think it's amazing to see that students who are actually in a summer break then come back, or even like are working during the summer on an exhibition that they can do. They make their time to contribute with different artworks and even from a different city to exhibit here in Linz. I found this really, really impressive, and it's a little bit like in the most positive way, a summer camp situation. You can see these students suddenly coming out of the summer break and then starting to install their work in the university, which is right at the main square. So a lot of movement is happening there. And people from different departments get to know each other's work and maybe get inspirations from different departments. But also the international exchange is amazing. Just think about all these amazing new ideas and potentially or hopefully also new collaborations that come out after the after work beer or the final party that they have together. And always exciting to see one or the other project that maybe some years later in our general pre-application. Every year we have also a pre-opening walk, and I show you the video in a little bit. It shows you part of the Loops of Wisdom exhibition and the exhibition opening there. It gives you an idea what you were able to see there and also what other stations in the city we were collaborating with. As you were able to see in the video, many people visited us this year again for the festival. It was so amazing to have like some sort of festival feeling again, where people could actually meet and exchange ideas. It was also cool because we had an on-site symposium and invited many different players, from technologists, but also very important to activism. We had many activists here who were particularly working in their different local fields on their different local problems. And one project was to invite these activists to share their call for action with us, to give us advice how we can become active, what little bits and pieces we can maybe just screw a little bit in a different direction in our daily life. Additional to this symposium, where the people were able to exchange ideas on the panel, we had also workshops and a symposium for youth, where they talked about their perspective of a call to action.
So, hello, friends from Ars Electronica. My name is Renata Avila. I'm 40, almost as old as the festival and the initiative. And this is my call of action. My call of action after, hearing all the talks and witnessing all the action here is to connect technology with politics. So my ask to the community is get involved in politics. You don't need to be the candidate, although it might be great to have communities and people and leaders that understand and love technology and the emancipatory power of technology to get involved. But demand it from your political party, demand it from leaders, demand a positive vision that will take back the tech for the people and mobilize to get the funding, to get the support, to get the action we need to re-democratize technology. We cannot leave the future, leave our digital future to tech giants from abroad. We need to see the digital future here, now. Get involved, get active, demand it in the polls, or maybe, run as a candidate and bring the amazing agenda of Ars Electronica, of the positive, emancipatory power of technology into the mainstream of politics.
I'm Glacier Kwong, a Hong Kong activist born and raised in Hong Kong. I'm currently living in self-imposed exile in Germany because of the activism that I do fighting for freedom and democracy in Hong Kong. Hong Kong is in dire straits right now. The civil society has been dismantled by the government and activists have been cracked down on. So I would love to ask you to share news about Hong Kong, to understand what's happening in Hong Kong and the threat that's coming from China to the democracy in the world. I would also love you to share news about Hong Kong on the social media, to talk about Hong Kong with your friends and family and understand China's influence in your own country. I hope that one day I'll be able to return to Hong Kong to talk about the stories that I've heard from different people on different parts of the world fighting for democracy. And I hope you would help me do the job as well. Thank you very much.
Tech cannot belong only to those roughly 2 billion people who are connected, who are well educated according to standards, who are the ones who live usually in what we call the global north and the rich countries of this world. We are 8 billion, and so that must change. AI, augmented and virtual reality, digital development, that belongs to all of us. And why do we need it? Because our globe can only survive if we can understand it and if we comprehend it as a brain. The more connections are made, the more synapses opening, the better and the more sustainable our Earth, our globe will manage the challenges, which of course are just seemingly unsurmountable. But we can do it. We have invented a lot. A lot of people have tried things. A lot of people have good practice, but also worse practice, bad practice. These are experiences we need to share. And that sharing that sharing that must also be accessible to all those who are disconnected, dispossessed populations in the parts of the world which we don't even see. Making that knowledge available, that is what we call the switchboard, the global switchboard, the social switchboard of this world, and there's no reason that we can't take those resources, those capacities, those technologies in our hands and make our world a little bit more just.
Technology is an extension of our mind and our bodies and has already dominated the way that we think, we judge, we explore, and we imagine. My call to action has three folds. The first one is a radical shift, a call for radical shift in our philosophy of how we have been defining interest and profits based on individualism and individualism alone, and how we really need to reevaluate our values of what is considered worthy of investment. And that's from social justice to environmental to geopolitical conflicts. The second is to the top decision makers who exclusively have the say on what the technology should do and look like. And that's for a call to share the table for decision making. And when we consider inclusion at the table, is not an act of charity and it's not a favor to others. Without it, is flying with one wing and seeing through one eye. And the third call to action is to all individuals to take ownership of the change and technology and what we want to imagine for the future. And it is through that collective wisdom alone that we could reimagine our human society.
These were only 3 parts from our Ars Electronica Festival 2021, a new digital deal that I was able to share with you now. There are so many more aspects that I could share with you, as also like Gerfried and Froni already shared with you in previous talks. We have the Ars Electronica Gardens. We have different themes that you can explore further. We soon will have all the lectures and talks also online. So I can highly recommend you to check out our website, and particularly the archive, where these different door openers and maybe this inspiration can be found on demand. It will take us a little bit more time to collect all the content, but then you're able to also see the community events and the community projects that we implemented in the World Wide Web, in a remote status with different players from all over the world. So the beautiful thing about Ars Electronica is the local connection here in Linz, the international audience that comes here, that thrives through this, also consolidated at the festival. Please also feel free to get in touch with us. I'm Laura Welzenbach, head of Ars Electronica Export. Please feel free to reach out with questions, ideas, or thoughts. Thank you so much for your attention and have fun with the Facyl here in Salamanca.